Blessed Saint Joan d'Arc, the Maid of Orléans and a patron saint of France. Unfortunately, her story isn't so happy. Quick plug: TikTok, YouTube, Patreon. Check them out. Jeanne d'Arc, anglicized as Joan of Arc, was born in Domremy, Duchy of Bar, 1412. 3 years before the restart of the Hundred-Year War, 1415 to 1453. In 1425, aged 13, Jeanne d'Arc claimed that the saints, Saint Michael, Saint Catherine of Alexandria and Saint Margaret of Antioch, had appeared before her, and said that she was to aid in the war. The Hundred-Year War, more specifically the Lancastrian War, had 3 main characters. 2 generations of the Plantagenets, the kings of England. 2 generations of the Valois Burgundy, Dukes of Burgundy. Then 2 generations of the Valois, the Mad King of France and the Dauphin. Many other minor players like the Avignon Papacy, or the French popes, the Papal States, or the Roman popes, and many others fought during the Hundred Years' War, but the focus will be in the English, Burgundian, and French armies. Jeanne requested to see Charles the Dauphin in 1428, claiming to be guided by the saints. He sent her to aid in the relief of Orléans in April 1429. In that year, most of northern France was de facto controlled by the English and Burgundians. As the Burgundian King John the Fearless was assassinated by the French Armagnac faction, pushing the heir, Philip III the Good to side with the English in the war. Arriving with a pure white banner bearing the saints, Jeanne rallied the disheartened French army. 9 days after her arrival, the English abandoned Orléans. Not content to allow the English to just escape, Jeanne had an army pursue the English in the war campaign. This resulted in the decisive victory for the French at the Battle of Patay, 18th of June, 1429. This opened the way to Reims and allowing Charles the Dauphin to become Charles VII the Victorious. Unfortunately, the Siege of Paris in September 1429 and the Siege of La Chérite in November 1429, both English and Burgundian held cities, were failures, losing the faith that the army had with Jeanne. This culminated at the Siege of Compiègne, 23rd of May, 1430, which saw Jeanne captured by Burgundians. She was then put on trial for numerous charges, many trumped up. First was heresy and witchcraft, as how could some peasant farmer girl hear the voices of the saints? It must have been the work of demons and devils. Next was the most important one. She violated a small passage in the Bible. Specifically, Deuteronomy 22:5. No women in men's clothing. She broke this because of pants. The pants are because riding a horse in a skirt would have been indecent and likely a safety hazard. Quote, "It is both more seemly and proper to dress like this when surrounded by men, than wearing a woman's clothes, while I have been in prison, the English have censored, when I was dressed as a woman." She weeps, "I have done this to defend my modesty." Joan believed that God favored the French. God was on her side, as long as she insisted that her voices were saints telling her to attack the English. She was doomed. If true, they would have invalidated the English claim to legitimate rule in France. Of course, exposing Joan as a fraud, or as someone deluded by evil spirits, would also have struck at the legitimacy of Charles VII. Because Joan of Arc still claimed to hear the saints, she was declared a heretic and sentenced to purification by flames. The 19-year-old was bound and set ablaze on the 30th of May 1431. It wouldn't be until 1450 that Charles VII had the rehabilitation trial ordered. This rendered the guilty verdict as a sham, making Jeanne d'Arc a hero of France. She was beatified by Pope Pius X in 1909, and canonized as a saint in 1920 by Pope Benedict XV. The story of the Maid of Orléans is not a happy one. Betrayed by the Burgundians and executed for her faith, she remained devout until the end. If there's someone you want me to cover, let me know. Have a good day and enjoy!